Well, we all knew that was just a bit of a blip, right? Right? Welcome back to the World Cup recap, day 11 now of the tournament. We recycled things from Group G and Group H, which, if you didn't know, after the first match day, every single team in these groups were all tied on 1 point. None of them were able to get a win in their first games, but that will obviously change today. Starting with Spain against Saudi Arabia. Now, obviously, Spain, one of the favorites of the tournament, coming off a disappointing 0-0 draw against Cabo Verde. But could you really blame them with how good Vizinha played in that game? And also the fact that Lamine Yamal was on for 20 minutes and Mikel Oyarzabal didn't get a touch for 30 minutes. Regardless, not the best of starts for Spain, but at the same time, it's also not the worst case scenario. We obviously saw Argentina back in 2022. They lost to Saudi Arabia in their opening game. And look what they went on to do. So clearly, if anyone thought that Spain weren't really legit after that first game, you might have been a little bit mistaken. Because in this game, it was night and day, and all that credit should definitely go to Lamine Yamal. Even when he came on in the last game against Cabo Verde, in the 20 or so minutes that he was on the pitch, Spain got a lot more aggressive. He carried a lot more of the ball, carried that offense, and really got Spain as close as they came to a goal in that last period of the game. And in this one, he wasted absolutely no time. Again, doing exactly what he does best, just untouchable on the ball. But in this one, it was his movement off the ball that got him in that position to get that first goal. With Oyarzabal setting him up down the left-hand side, Yamal easy tap-in, 1-0 Spain, and Lamine Yamal has his moment. 18 years old, the youngest goal scorer for Spain at the World Cup. Also an interesting stat that both him and Lionel Messi scored their first World Cup goals at 18 years and 11 months old. I don't know what's crazier, the stat itself or the fact that 20 years later, Lionel Messi is still playing at the World Cup. Regardless, again, Lamine Yamal, absolute game changer. He is the driving force for Spain, and he was absolutely that in this first half. As things just kept on rolling for La Roja, we gotta talk about Mikel Oyarzabal. This guy went from not having a single touch of the ball in the first 30 minutes of that Cabo Verde game. This time, in the first 25 minutes, he assisted Yamal and got 2 himself. Those 2 goals, and just that second one in particular, was just absolutely incredible. I remember just sitting there thinking, what in the ticky-tack am I watching right now? Like, the way Spain were able to move the ball in the air, perfectly falling to Oyarzabal, just incredible stuff from them. Again, this was just a night and day performance from Spain. Really not able to get much going in that first game against Cabo Verde. But again, when you have a guy like Lamine Yamal, we know how dangerous he is. We know how much attention he gets from defenses. It just opens up everything, and particularly Oyarzabal. I saw from last game, he was getting dodgy comparisons to the likes of Alvaro Morata, but in this game, he was anything but that. He was absolutely phenomenal. And with Spain up big at halftime, Luis de la Fuente made the move of taking both of those guys off. Smart thing to do considering Yamal's still not 100%, and likewise with Oyarzabal, you want to protect those guys for the rest of this tournament. And even with those guys out, Spain were still able to pour things on. Marc Cucurella off a set piece, tapped it in. Plenty of touches. They're just a mess, honestly, for Saudi Arabia. And that's honestly how I could describe this performance as. This was just a poor showing from them. This is not the Saudi Arabia team that we saw in the 2022 World Cup led by Hervé Renard, going at teams like Argentina and just having so much success with that. This time, I can't even really explain what their identity is. Going back to that Uruguay game, yes, they got on the board first, but after that, they really weren't able to find their attacking foot. This game, they just didn't have it at all. They were brutally dominated by Spain in this one. And to think that I almost chose Saudi Arabia as a team to potentially go into the top 2 of this group, looking back, I'm very glad I didn't do that because, man, these 2 performances, I mean, the Uruguay game, they got out of a draw, which is probably the best thing that could have happened for them, but in this one, there's nothing to defend about this one, just like how they defended nothing against Spain. Ferran Torres obviously almost added a 5th goal. That was ruled out offside. It was very close on that one. But regardless, great bounce back game for Spain. Definitely getting that mojo back again with Lamine Yamal returning, and hopefully we get to see Nico Williams have an increased role as things go on as well. To me, it's as simple as that. I think Spain definitely needed a performance like this, but at the same time, having that previous game against Cabo Verde, that was also fine to have. Yes, they're very deep and they have a great collection of players, but at the end of the day, it is the star power that's really going to lead them to that far point in this World Cup. So again, if anyone counted Spain out from that Cabo Verde game, I can understand why, but at the same time, look what Cabo Verde's doing. We'll talk about them later. But again, stuff like this happens in World Cups. Even the teams that didn't really lose their opening game, I think of Germany in 2014. Yes, they beat Portugal 4-0 in their first game, but their next game, they scraped a 2-2 draw against Ghana. It's usually pretty rare for teams to just outright dominate a tournament. They all have to face some kind of challenges and adversity or whatever the case may be along the way. Obviously, Spain's not the only one in that regard to have done something like that. For Spain, coming in as the favorites, there's definitely some pressure in that regard. But at the same time, you look at those players that they have on there, you trust them to do their job. You trust Luis De La Fuente to manage things well, especially, again, with guys like Yamal. You don't want to necessarily rush him too much back into action. You want to pick those spots where he can really make his impact. The Cape Verde game was in those last 20 minutes. I thought he did a fine enough job. Again, just unlucky for Spain not to get that one goal. And then obviously today, first 45 was all he needed to do what he needed to do. As the Spanish team goes into their last game against Uruguay, a chance to win that group and subsequently knock Uruguay out. And for Saudi Arabia, I know they've been dealt kind of a bad hand of the fact that they played Uruguay and Spain in their first 2 games. But at the same time, they really haven't looked too impressive in either one of those. So heading into that last game, I'm not super confident in them getting all 3 points. Now moving on to the second game of the day, we jump to Group G this time with Belgium against Iran. The one thing that sticks out to me first when it comes to this is Belgium. I said in my preview video that if they don't outright win this group, something is very, very wrong. And now we're 2 games in, and they have yet to win a game. Once again, it just feels like things with this Belgium team are just spiraling. In particular, with Jeremy Doku. He wasn't impressive in that first game against Egypt, and then since in the coming days, there's been a lot that's happened. First, there was the report of the fact that he might miss 1 or maybe 2 of Belgium's knockout games, with him expecting his first child around the beginning of July. Since then, we've seen plenty of backlash on him, including from journalists themselves. And as if this was already not enough on his plate, he came into this game and subsequently was not playing. With him supposedly catching a virus, he was out of the lineup completely. And again, for Doku's shortcomings in that first game against Egypt, he is still easily their most threatening player in the attack. And to not have him there was a huge loss. Aside from that, Belgium obviously today went with a little bit of a different lineup, with Romelu Lukaku getting the start today after he was kind of sort of responsible for getting the equalizer without actually getting it. But again, even with all of this said, right, even with all the behind the scenes stuff that usually seems to plague Belgium in almost every single international tournament at this point, this was still a massive, massive missed opportunity. They were outright better than Iran today. It's just becoming a theme at this point, right? We talked about it with Turkey. We talked about it with Ecuador. These teams, man, they just have to find the back of the net. And what also feels like an everyday occurrence at this World Cup is just an insane goalkeeper performance. This day, yesterday was Eloy Room, and this day it was Ali Reza Baranvan. He was just insane, and he probably had the save of the tournament. Like, how Belgium have not managed to score that chance is honestly just beyond me. I mean, the reflex there to reach out desperately to get that, I mean, that was just insane. So shout out to him for that performance, but man, again, Belgium just have to feel so hard done by themselves, not by really any other external factors. Although, speaking of external factors, it certainly didn't help when a few minutes later Nathan Ngoy got himself sent off for, again, a just stupid red card. Again, Belgium had all the momentum throughout those last couple minutes. It looked like they were eventually going to get that chance to put the ball in the back of the net, and then to do something like that, an attack that wasn't really the most threatening, but doing that, it just killed their chances. And that's how it usually is with Belgium, right? It's these self-inflicted wounds that just keeps on coming with them in every single tournament, whether it's internal disputes, plays like that, Doku stuff going on. I mean, it's just a lot right now for Belgium. And again, 2 games through, no wins in a group that, even without them being at their best, they still should have easily been dominating. I understand maybe not beating Egypt. I think Egypt were probably better than them on that day. But this game, they had to get 3 points in this one. And now they find themselves in a pretty much must-win situation against New Zealand. That game is not a walk in the park for Belgium, especially, again, they gotta finish the ball. Belgium have yet to score a goal in this World Cup themselves. The only goal that they got was obviously off of Egypt. So again, for Belgium, once again, they're just underperforming at an international tournament. Although it's crazy because, again, this time the expectation was so much lower. This isn't the last 3 tournaments where Belgium were coming in with all these great players in their peaks, highly ranked in FIFA. I mean, they still are a top 10 team, but at the same time, like, come on. We know what Belgium really are. But even with that, it's like that one thing where it's like our expectations were low, but man, somehow they still managed to find a way to go even lower than that. And once again, fair play to Iran and their goalkeepers just absolutely shutting things down today. Again, with all the circumstances that Iran have had to deal with in this tournament, it's impressive the fact that they managed to walk away with 2 points, especially with this Belgium game. This sets them up, obviously, for their last game against Egypt in Seattle. A draw would probably be enough to be able to put them through to the knockouts with those 3 points. But again, nothing's guaranteed. We'll have to wait and see how all of that unfolds. But regardless for Iran, they will happily take a point away from this Belgium team that easily should have done their job. Now we go back to Group H. Easily my favorite game of the day, maybe my favorite game of this tournament so far, Uruguay against Cape Verde. This team is quickly becoming the story of the World Cup. An island with just over 500,000 people coming off an insane 0-0 draw against Spain, where their goalkeeper became an instant celebrity overnight. To this day, I think now he has over 15 million followers. He has more followers than Manuel Neuer. Obviously, he was the story coming off of that first game, and it was nice to see that in this game, his family were able to be in attendance. But in this game against Uruguay, Cape Verde decided to be a lot more aggressive, especially with their press. I want to talk about that a little bit later, but first, I want to talk about Kevin Pina. This guy was about 30-something yards away from goal on a free kick, and instead of taking the safe route that a lot of teams will do, he just says, screw it, I'm going to just launch it. And he got it through the wall and in the bottom right corner for Cape Verde's historic moment. Their first goal at the World Cup being a direct free kick. How insane is that? 20 minutes in, they have the lead over Uruguay. Who could have seen that coming? I mean, that was just absolutely insane, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. Cape Verde were doing it. They weren't just here for the vibes. They're here to make their dreams come true. And through the rest of the first half, things looked pretty comfortable Cape Verde until right at the end. Marcelo Bielsa smelled blood, and he absolutely took advantage, with Maxi Araujo netting the equalizer before Augustin Canobio in added time gave the Uruguayans the lead. Just like that, the game just turned on its head as Uruguay went from being down for pretty much the entire game. Now they find themselves up 2-1 heading into the half. One of the things that stood out to me, I forgot which one of the goals it was, but there was a moment where a Uruguay player was helping a Cape Verde player who had some kind of cramp or injury or something. He's trying to help him out. All of a sudden, he sees his team in attack, and he just absolutely goes for it, leaves him on the ground, leaves him to dust, and Uruguay, I think, subsequently score off of that. So a bit of an unsporting moment there, but you know the Uruguayans, they're just not going to care. And speaking of not caring, Matias Oliveira. Early in the second half, again, I want to go back to Cape Verde's press. Every time Uruguay would go out, they would be pressing those defenders, trying to make those quick passes, and Muslera as well in goal. This time, the press paid off. Matias Oliveira made a horrific pass back to Muslera. Muslera, not seeing it coming, has to quickly come out. He makes a mistake, and they are punished by substitute Helio Varela. He came on a minute before this, just pouncing on that misplay, and a volley finish there as all of a sudden, out of complete nowhere, Cape Verde leveled the game again. Once more, I just could not believe what I just saw. The error itself was obviously just horrendous from Uruguay. They cannot have that happen. But again, just the moment of Cape Verde scoring again, equalizing against Uruguay. It was just unbelievable. And the rest of this game was honestly just nuts. Both sides were going back and forth, countering on each other. Both of them had great opportunities. Uruguay obviously pushing a lot more at the end, but no luck for them as Cape Verde make history again. 2 points at the World Cup, 2 goals scored, and they're in a great position to pull off one of the biggest shocks in World Cup history. Again, a World Cup debut with just over 500,000 inhabitants now have the opportunity to see themselves through into the knockout stages. How special would that be? How special is this story, man? Cape Verde, man. And it's not just them. We're seeing all of these new teams, even Curacao going back to yesterday. These teams, again, they're not here just for the vibes and just for the, hey, we're here at the World Cup. They're coming to play. And Cape Verde, man, this game, they came to play. Uruguay paid the price. They underestimated them on numerous occasions. That free kick that no one saw coming from Pina. And then again, Varela pouncing on that play. A huge mistake at the back. Again, an absolute statement from Cape Verde. And again, for Uruguay, like I said in their last video, this is not the same Uruguay team we've seen in years past. They're now much more prone to these kinds of mistakes. And again, this is a game that, when you look on the surface, they should have easily got 3 points out of. Not because they necessarily utterly dominated the game, but the fact that, again, those goals being self-inflicted wounds. And again, their first 2 games coming against Saudi Arabia and Cape Verde, now they have to take on a Spain team that has seemingly got their mojo back. So from what it looked, and I say all this to say that Uruguay might be in trouble. What looked like was going to be an easy second place for them in this group they're going to be fighting for their lives in that final game. And speaking of that final game, Cape Verde, they've gone through Spain and Uruguay in their first 2 games. Now they take on a Saudi Arabia team that just got spanked 4-0. Again, they have it in their hands at this point. As said before, even a draw could be enough for them, but a win in this situation, being their first win at the World Cup to send them through to the knockouts, that would just be absolutely insane. And I want to see it, man. I don't care, man. I am absolutely loving this story, man. Cape Verde just absolutely smashing it at this World Cup, proving everyone wrong and proving that these countries that coming into this World Cup we all doubted of, oh, there's too many countries that are being added to the World Cup. Are these countries even worth being in there? Yes, they are. Cape Verde have proved to everyone, no matter how small you are, you can go toe-to-toe with the right mindset, with the right game plan, and with the right support. You can go toe-to-toe with some of the greatest football nations on the planet. Spain, Euro champions, the favorite to win this tournament, held them off the entire game. And Uruguay, 2-time World Cup champions, a great team in South America, and they found the net twice against them. That is just absolutely incredible. And I cannot wait to see what that final game brings. Hopefully, it's history. And now on to the last game of the day. We swing right back to Group G with New Zealand against Egypt. Now, as I said before, Egypt coming off an impressive result against Belgium, a game where I honestly thought they very much outplayed them. And with that result, they set themselves up in this game to potentially grab their first ever win at the World Cup. But again, as I said, New Zealand has not been an easy team to play against. Despite the fact that they are just ranked 85th in the world, they gave Iran a great fight in that first game. The duo of Chris Wood and Elijah Just were just absolutely on fire. But in this game, once again, Egypt's defense was able to hold firm against those two. However, it wasn't the easiest of starts for them, obviously, with Finn Surman netting the first goal of the game, putting the All Whites up 1-0 early on. Tim Payne with the assist as well. He has another crazy social media story. He came into this tournament with the least amount of followers. I think he had just under 5,000. Now he's got well over 5 million. As once again, New Zealand just turning heads in this. They've scored the first goal in each of their first 2 games now of this tournament. But in that second half, we saw Egypt finally wake up. Mohamed Haney, coming off his own goal in his last game against Belgium, this time was responsible for putting Egypt ahead, running down the right and crossing it in, finding Mustafa Ziko as Egypt were level. And things weren't done for Egypt as 10 minutes later, the Egyptian king finally arrived. Mo Salah with his first goal of the World Cup put Egypt up 2-1. Huge moment for him again. Just a long time coming for Mo Salah, who proved that even with his tumultuous end to his time at Liverpool in these last couple of months, he's still able to show up and perform big time for his country. And he also wasn't done there. With 15 minutes later, he set up Trezeguet off the bench as Egypt sealed the deal in Vancouver. They get their first ever win at the World Cup. And more importantly, they find themselves top of Group G. Again, something that I don't think many people could have seen coming heading into this tournament. But Egypt, man, they have easily been the standout team in this group. Again, a great first game against Belgium, and then a huge second half in this one, coming back down from 1-0 to a big time win, as once again they have all to play for and all in their control heading into that last game against Iran. While New Zealand, on the other hand, once again that defense was very much tested, just like it was in the Iran game. That's an area that they'll definitely need to sort out pretty quickly, because Belgium were not necessarily any easier in that regard. But yeah, Egypt, they are just absolutely doing their thing right now. And again, for a country that has had so much success as far as the African scene of international football, the fact that this was their first win at the World Cup, and this is a team that's participated in World Cups dating back to, I think, the 1930s. Long time coming for them, almost a century in the making, but fair play to Egypt. They finally get things done, and we'll see what they can do from here, because again, if we got Mo Salah performing the way he does, that could cause some problems for a lot of teams in this World Cup. But that is going to be it for day 11 now of the World Cup. Make sure to like and subscribe for daily World Cup content. And once again, thank you so much for the support on this. It's been insane making all of these. I love making these, just talking about the World Cup every single day. There's always something to talk about, and that'll be the same case for today. We get Argentina and France and all those teams back in action. I cannot wait for it. It's time to get straight to that. Let's play football.